When people talk about royalty, they often speak in hushed tones, as if joy itself must be rationed, approved, and carefully choreographed. Smiles are allowed, but only in moderation. Laughter is permitted, but preferably behind palace walls. And freedom, real freedom, is something that royalty is supposed to admire from a distance, not actively pursue. That is why every single time Prince Harry is seen living fully, laughing openly, or doing something as simple and human as surfing with friends, it sends shockwaves through certain corners of the media. Not because he's done anything wrong, but because he's done something right. He's chosen joy. This recent moment, Prince Harry back on the waves, surfing alongside legendary waterman Raimana Van Bastolaer, should have been received for what it truly is. A man enjoying the ocean. A father reconnecting with nature. A veteran finding peace in movement and balance. A human being doing something healthy, grounding, and life-affirming. But instead, for some critics, it became yet another excuse to sneer, to mock, and to ask the same tired question they always ask when Harry smiles. How dare he? What they never seem to ask is the far more important question. Why shouldn't he? Harry's connection to the ocean didn't begin in California. It didn't start as a publicity stunt or a lifestyle rebrand. It grew naturally over time through his love of physical activity, his respect for mental health, and his need for spaces that allow him to breathe freely. Surfing, like many outdoor pursuits, demands presence. You cannot be distracted by the past or anxious about the future when you're riding a wave. You have to be fully in the moment. And for someone who spent much of his life under relentless scrutiny, that kind of presence is not indulgent, it's healing. Yet every time Harry steps into a space of healing, there are those who try to drag him back into pain. They mock his laughter as irresponsibility. They frame his happiness as rebellion. They portray his peace as betrayal. But what they are really reacting to is something far simpler and far more uncomfortable for them. Harry is no longer performing misery for their consumption. For decades, Prince Harry was defined by tragedy. The world froze him in time as the boy who walked behind the coffin. That image became a permanent reference point, used repeatedly to justify intrusion into his grief. But grief is not a life sentence. Healing is not a crime. And surviving loss does not mean one must spend the rest of their life proving they are still broken. Surfing, in this context, becomes symbolic. It represents balance, it represents resilience, it represents learning how to fall, get back up, and ride forward anyway. That symbolism matters because Harry's life has been anything but calm waters. From a young age, his mistakes were magnified, his growth stunted by public judgment, and his humanity routinely stripped away. Yet here he is, still standing, still smiling, still moving forward. What makes this moment even more powerful is who he chose to share it with. Raimana Van Bastolaer is not just a surfer. He is a cultural ambassador of ocean wisdom, discipline, and respect for nature. Surfing with someone like Raimana isn't about aesthetics or social media, it's about learning. It's about humility. It's about entering a space where titles mean nothing and balance means everything. That is something Prince Harry has consistently shown since stepping back from royal life. A willingness to learn, to listen, and to exist outside of hierarchy. On the waves, there is no duke and no commoner. There is only timing, patience, and respect for forces larger than yourself. That is not arrogance. That is grounded self-awareness. Critics often accuse Harry of running away, but you don't run away from something when you confront it honestly. You don't run away from trauma by addressing it publicly, seeking therapy and encouraging others to do the same. You don't run away from responsibility by building foundations, supporting veterans, advocating for mental health, and showing up for causes that matter. What Harry ran away from was silence. What he left behind was performative duty without emotional truth. Surfing fits into that story perfectly. It's not about escape, it's about alignment. It's about choosing environments that support well-being rather than erode it. For Harry, the ocean is not a playground, it's a reset button. And in a world that constantly demands explanations for his existence, moments like this remind us that he owes no one a justification for being happy. There's also something deeply telling about how differently joy is treated depending on who expresses it. When other public figures are photographed vacationing, laughing or enjoying hobbies, it's framed as well-deserved relaxation. When Harry does the same, it's framed as irresponsibility or provocation. The double standard is so obvious it barely needs pointing out, but it still deserves to be named. Prince Harry is not neglecting his family by surfing. He is modelling balance for his children. He is showing them that mental health matters. He is demonstrating that strength includes rest, play, and connection to nature. That is not weakness. That is leadership in a modern world that desperately needs healthier examples of masculinity. And let's be clear, nothing about this moment undermines his commitment to service. If anything, it reinforces it. People who care for themselves are better equipped to care for others. People who prioritize wellness burn out less quickly. People who allow themselves joy are more resilient in the face of criticism. Harry's life post-royalty has been defined not by indulgence, but by intentionality. The discomfort his happiness causes says far more about his critics than it ever will about him. There are institutions that rely on quiet suffering to function smoothly. There are systems that benefit when individuals suppress their pain instead of questioning it. Harry disrupts those systems simply by existing openly. And that disruption is not loud or aggressive, it's calm, smiling, and unapologetically human. Surfing also reminds us that Harry is not trying to be extraordinary. He's trying to be normal. He's trying to enjoy the things millions of people enjoy without having those moments twisted into narratives of rebellion. He is doing what countless veterans are encouraged to do: engage in physical activity, find grounding practices, and build community outside rigid structures. That should be applauded, not criticized. The phrase shared alongside the moment, "Cannot stop you, my brother, for having a good time," captures something essential. Brotherhood, support, no judgment, no hierarchy, just shared experience. That kind of camaraderie is something Harry has always valued, particularly among people who see him as a person first and a title second. And that is perhaps the real reason these images resonate so deeply with supporters around the world. They see authenticity. They see relief. They see a man who has stopped shrinking himself to so too will headlines. But the ocean does not care about tabloids. It responds only to presence, patience, and respect. On the water, Harry is not a controversy. He is not a headline. He is simply a man finding balance. And perhaps that is the most powerful thing of all. Because the truth is, Prince Harry was never meant to be frozen in grief. He was meant to grow. He was meant to heal. He was meant to live. And no amount of noise will ever drown out the sound of someone finally at peace with themselves, especially when that sound is carried on the waves.